YouTube. Possibly Rumble. Possibly maybe someday. Early in the morning. 5 o'clock or something. Still dark as shit out. Evolution. Heliocentricism. Eccentricism. Do you get it? You're just eccentrics. I'm sure you don't. A lot of flat earthers, I guess, wouldn't no. All flat earthers know the heliocentric model. Probably better than you do. You think you know it. You're eccentrically crazy about it. The way that you go on about how much you guys think you know and how much evidence you think you have. But you've never actually looked into that evidence. You say, geologists and the biologists and the chemists and all these people have all this evidence, and it's all in a big heap over here, and you can grab little keywords out of carbon dating, throw it out there with radiometric dating and evolution and just throw these words, but you don't look into what they actually mean. You don't even know. We do, or well, I would hope. Some of us do. See, carbon dating, radiometric dating, all of those dating methods are sound science. But they get their base numbers from the geologic timescale. That isn't sound science. That's just make-believe. So when I want to carbon date something, I have to go to the geologic timescale, find something that carbon dates the same, and then I know the two are the same age. And I know how old this is because I know where it was in the timescale. Simple, right? Except the geologic timescale is only found in, I don't even know how small amount of the Earth it's found in, but it's a small amount of the Earth that it's even existent upon. And then 80.6 or 80.2 or something like that. More than 80% of the time, it's found in the wrong order. So you only find it 20%. You only find it, let's say you can find it in half of the Earth. And that's giving you the benefit of the doubt. I don't think it's that much. Because, like, as a carpenter, I've never found it. I've never dug up the ground. My dad puts in pipelines and stuff like that all across Canada, and he runs heavy equipment and stuff like that, and digs and puts in buildings and puts in bridges and does all kinds of stuff a whole lifetime. He did for 60 years or whatever. He never ever had an archaeology dig on any of his excavations. Never. So when people say that, oh, we find carpenters and farmers and stuff find it all the time. Yeah, well, of course, they're the ones who find it because they're the ones digging in the ground. So it only stands to reason that they're the ones who are going to find things. But I mean, we're not finding them every day. We're not finding most of the Earth is just the Earth. It's rock. And then there's mud or there's clay. Um, you can find gravel pits, but and which blow your geologic timescale right out of the fucking water. I know one gravel pit where there's like river rock, and then there's sand, and then there's gravel, and there's rock, and all in the same like 5-10 acres of space. And it, they're finding more stuff there all the time, different materials, all in the same spot, which and and in different orders, and not in your geological orders. And then when we dig mines and things like that, that's when we either find them, find the geologic time scales, and find time scales, and find layers in the earth. But finding a layer in something doesn't tell you anything. The layers could be formed many ways, and them being in different orders all the time, and different layers in different areas, and then being absent altogether in other areas where it's just one type of earth, leads you to more believe that it was something else distributing these layers in the ground. Something else happened, right? And then we have a fossil record. But everything on Earth dies, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. It goes back to being dust, even bone, right? And I realize even the bones that we find, you got to be very careful with them because they'll fall apart, right? Because they're so old, right? They're turning back to dust. But we find a lot of like fossils, closed clams in the fossil closed position. That means they're alive. So they were still alive, fossilized, on top of Mount Everest. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, right? That's hard to explain with your theory. But it's easy to explain with God's theory. There was a flood, right? So now we also have oceanic trenches. And every time there's a trench, there's a parallel mountain range. So it stands to reason to think that was all made at once. And then the other thing that leads you to believe that is that the majority, no, not the majority. There's two of our major pyramid systems are under the ocean. One's at the Bermuda Triangle, and one's just off the coast of Newfoundland. And there's probably more that we don't know of, right? Along that fault line, because it's got to be, in order to build a pyramid, there has to be lava, like I forget what that's called, but a vein of lava underneath, and then there has to be a vein of water above that, running underneath like a subterranean river, and then usually or water of some kind. I think they could use just a river that didn't have to be subterranean, but either way, it had to have that the volcanic activity underneath of them, and that's why the ones in Canada, eastern Canada, eastern United States, are under the ocean, because that's where our volcanic lines are. And then we've got a whole trail of them going up the west coast, but they're all small. But they meet the criteria of having the tunnels and stuff underneath of them. Now, I don't know if they regulate the frequency of the Earth like the major ones do. And that's why the Bermuda Triangle is such a mess, because it's that one must be cleaned out underneath, so it's still active, it's still working, and it's screwing with the frequency, keeping a lower frequency so that there's more activity there, more life there, more everything. So that's why there's probably different creatures living there and everything. Who knows? They wouldn't tell you. I'm sure that they know, but you wouldn't be allowed to know. That would be something that would go to the basement of the Smithsonian and never be heard of again. More and more stuff goes down there than you'd ever believe. Really, it's amazing how much of our history is hidden down there. And in the Vatican too, same deal. In the Vatican one, I looked that right up. That's interesting. They finally started to let scientists and professors in to the Vatican basement, so they could slow down on the scrutiny or whatever from people years and years ago. I don't know how long ago, but anyways, so you got to have a multitude of doctorates, obviously, and then there's like an application thing, and you have to. The application is a 6-month process where you got to be kind of like at their beck and call, and there was a bunch of loopholes that you had to jump through in this 6-month period, and if you didn't hit them all, then you had to start all over again. And then if you made it through that 6-month period and actually got your allowance to go and request things, that's what the way it goes is you're allowed to request 3 items a day out of the basement. If you name them wrong and they're not found, or if you come up with the wrong numbers or whatever, and they can't actually go and locate that item in that location, you don't get to pick again until the next day. So you just lose that item for the day. So if you were looking for an item that was lost down there, you could pick 3 locations for it. If all 3 of them are wrong, they don't bring you any item. They don't bring you the item out of that location. They just don't bring you, oh no, that wasn't the item. Try again. And so you could just not get anything. And then your card or whatever to be in there only lasts so many months. I forget what it was. Half a year, maybe a year, whatever it is. And then you got to renew the whole 6-month process all over again. And you're never allowed to step foot into the basement yourself and actually like walk in and look around. No way. They cardinals go down and grab the shit for you, bring it up and give it to you if you pick the right thing from the right location or whatever. Don't get me 100% on that. They might give you whatever was in that location, but if it's not what you're looking for, just some foreign object, could just be a rock. It could be a skull. It could be anything. I don't know how the Smithsonian works. You're probably not allowed down there either. I wouldn't think. No people are allowed down there. But I mean, even people in the field, you would have to be kissing some major ass in order to be allowed into there. All archaeological digs are funded by the same group of millionaires who then put the archaeologists under contract that if they don't want something released, they're not allowed to talk about it. So if you find Jesus Christ and they don't want you to talk about it, you're not allowed to talk about it, and if you break contract, you're going to prison or whatever. So they're going to destroy you, take your home, and you'll be a bum on the street, or whatever. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like, it could be anything. That they don't want us to know about, like giants. They hide giants constantly. The Smithsonian grabbed up every giant skeleton. They were digging them up in the 1800s. You can find all these newspaper clippings of them finding it, and it was like calm, and everybody was curious about it, but no, it wasn't hidden. It was all in the newspapers, right? Well, the newspapers were privately owned back then too, right? I can remember when our newspapers, local newspapers, got bought by our local oil tyrant, and my grandparents were freaking right out, but my parents' generation didn't really give a shit, and it happened worldwide. CNN came out, and all the newspapers and all the local TV stations and stuff like that got bought up by these these conglomerates and these corporations, and whether it was observing here, it could have been Exxon or whatever, where you're in different cities, just whatever members of their club happen to run your city, your real city leader. Like, what would he be called? Back in the day, it would have been like your duke or your overlord. You know what I mean? We got our politician that we vote for. That's basically your sheriff. Or that's just like a puppet or a figurehead. But I know here, at least, they answer to Irving. PEI, it's the McCains. Whatever they want and whatever they say kind of happens. And if you try to go against them, well, they own the newspapers and they own the TV stations and they own all of that. So you can't really go against them. You're not going to get a story against them printed in their paper or promoted on their TV channel. So that people just don't hear about that shit. And then they think they're all informed. That's the other thing. All you people think you're so informed because you watch the news at 6 o'clock or whatever. It's absolutely nothing on there. And what is on there is just hype. Just to fill in your brain, make you think about stuff or whatever. And then even me watching Louder with Crowder or whatever. Most of those guys, same deal. Like they're right a part of this failed system. They think that their party or whatever can fix that system. It's like beating your head against a wall or whatever. I just don't get it. This time, they'll fix themselves or whatever. You keep thinking that. I don't understand how people think that voting for anything at this point is going to make any fucking difference. It might slow down, like Justin Trudeau in Canada is going to push further more of that agenda of the socialism than the Republican side would. But the Republican side still has the same boss that they answer to. So they still have to go towards that agenda. Now they can do, each of them can kind of do their own thing, you know, as long as they keep going in the same direction. But if you start to deviate, or if you come up with some idea that screws with the main plan, you get told from the top down. It happened with Trump. It was so obvious when he was shooting down the masks mandates and all that stuff, and he was saying about no mask, blah blah blah, all that, and then he got reprimanded, but from the heads, the top down, and I don't know. You guys know who they are. I'm not going to say their name. And it changed what he was saying overnight. Oh, well, yeah, blah, 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 right? And, you know, there's certain things you can say and do, politicians can say and do, but they got to stay in the mainstream and the main plan for these head bankers and for the head leaders of the financial world. And that's another thing. Okay, let's say I was that family, for an example. And I want to do a bunch of malicious shit out in the world. So, I have all this power, influence, whatever, money, but people are starting to see that it's me. But I don't want them to know that it's me, because I need to be able to continue to control everything, right? So, and if something goes wrong, I can't have it coming back to me. I need to be in the shadows, dealing with everything from a distance, or put someone out there who can deal with everything for me, right? And so I pick my guy, he starts doing a real good job, or my two, maybe three guys, whatever, right? Girls, whatever. But they need to be able to push their influence. So, to take the heat off of me altogether, I could relinquish my money to them, because money is nothing. We all think, you all think your cash money stands for something in whatever country you're at or whatever. But it's just a piece of paper that's based on debt. There's nothing backing that. I don't have to hold the bill in my hand in order to do this, because that's how little I can hold this. It doesn't matter, because that's how much worth is in your dollar when they say. So I could give all of that money to Bill Gates. Go ahead. Do whatever you want with it. You step out of line, I can take the worth of that money away. It's just fucking paper. It's nothing, Bill. You got nothing. You're not worth anything. You don't have any fucking power. It's just an illusion. George Soros, whatever, doesn't matter. Whoever you want to fucking think about. They're just my rooks, bishops. If you want to think about it like a chess game, right? Politicians would be the pawns, and then the billionaires would be the rooks and the bishops and the knights. And you're not seeing the king and the queen anymore. And I don't know why. People are just overlooking it all of a sudden. Well, I do know why. It's because you're watching things like Steven Crowder and whatever, and they're making these false bad guys into the real bad guys, and keeping your attention away from the bad guy who's been the bad guy generationally since before America. Before America ever started, there was a family, group of families, really, but there was a family pulling strings, running the banks, owning everything, doing everything, and then they kind of pushed back, and they're letting everything be run by different figureheads, but they still have the power. It's a fickle power, because it's just based off of that they own all the millionaires and all the billionaires, right? So, and the institutions that make up the economy or whatever, so they can destroy that, or destroy an individual within that system, right? They can crush you easily, right? How could they not? So or at least make it very, very hard. Like, again, I'm going to bring it back to the Louder Crowder and the Mug Club and stuff like that. I'm a proud supporter. It's only through the viewer that they get there now. Some of the things, I think they're allowed through that as well, like, because they're also not really stepping on that full narrative. Like, you'd never see my videos get real publicized or promoted or anything like that, because I'm saying way too much fucking truth. If they ever did anything like that, they'd, even on Blaze, like, Blaze would just be crushed. The whole thing, it'd be gone. Mug Club would be gone. They own the Silicon Valley, so they can just demonetize you off the internet, basically, or whatever. Like, they can take away your servers. So then you have to start up your own servers and everything, like Trump's doing. I think I'm going to run out of video space here soon again.